So before we start, we just wanted to do quick introductions of ourselves. So my name is Preeti Rajendran and I work with UWC Mahindra College. I just started. I'm 2 weeks into my role. But before that, I worked in university admissions in Pennsylvania, and before that, I worked at Woodstock School with Renee Bowling, again as the guidance counselor. So that's me, and I'm going to pass it on to Renee.
Great. Thanks for the introduction. I'm Renee Bowling from Woodstock School. I'm in my 8th year up in Mussoorie.
Good afternoon. My name is Kamal Ahuja. I'm the Deputy Head Academics at the Doon School. I've been with the school for 19 years. I used to do guidance and counseling, and my role changed over the years. I also teach theory of knowledge, business management, and economics. These are my subjects and across the boards, the curriculums that we do. It's good to be part of this team here. And thank you all for being here after lunch. This is not an easy session. It's very difficult to be anywhere after lunch. Our topic for today is to start a guidance curriculum in schools. What we are going to share with you is what 3 schools are doing across the country. The thing that brought us together was that we are all boarding schools. But we would like to share ideas, we would like to have your opinion on this, and we would like to come across on a common platform where we can have a curriculum which is innovative, dynamic, and continuously changing. So I've just got a few thoughts, they're prompts on why guidance and counseling. You can, if I'm not mistaken, the organizers also arrange for people to be shared, but the PowerPoints to be shared, but you be my guest. Right. So one of the reasons is it's a key resultant area. We feel that your placements add up to become a defining parameter of whether your school is progressive or not. And because of that, guidance counseling is an intrinsic part of a school's curriculum. We are also feeders into higher education. If you look at schools across the world, each one of them is striving to get their candidates into what they feel is the best fit university after 12 or 13 years of education. Depends on the type of curriculum you have. And we also feel that guidance counseling helps you encourage a holistic curriculum. Everything we do in schools is part of the curriculum. The curriculum is not just the teaching content. Sports, community service, activities like debating, publications, everything that comes together and forms the daily life of our students is part of our curriculum. And that holds true for most schools across the country. When you do guidance counseling, you realize how much importance this has at the end of the day. When admission officers actually look at a candidate, they're not just looking at transcripts. In fact, universities now have a process which they call holistic admission process. The holistic admission process is based upon looking at the candidate through the journey that they've had through schools. And they like to see sustainability. One of the key words that was used by our guest speakers today, in fact, our keynote speaker today. Sustainability of efforts and sustainability to things that you took up in school. For example, if you took up an activity in the last year of your school, it probably has no value. Were you doing it for the last 3 years? Yes, that has value. Also, this is interesting, developing curriculum. For us, in our school, there's been a lot of introspection, a lot of reflection. The guidance counseling curriculum played a very important role in deciding what kind of curriculum do we want to do. So for example, in Doon School, our class 9th is IGCSE, our class 10th is ICSE, our class 11th and 12th we have 2 curriculums, ISC and IB. So we're between 4 curriculums. And the reason why that has happened is we are phasing out the ICSE at year 10 and we're bringing in the IGCSE. Now again, one of the driving forces behind us was we were able to identify a curriculum that matched with the vision statement and the ethos of the school and what we were trying to achieve. And that played a very influential role in what we wanted to choose for the future. Timetabling. Anybody does timetabling here? God, that's fun, isn't it? That is the most exciting thing that anybody would like to do, isn't it? Yes, it is. It is. Actually, it is. And if you use a software, it's even more fun because the software is artificial intelligence and it throws up so many options that you're saying, is that also possible? Again, timetabling is a three-dimensional approach. It is teacher availability, it is student availability, it is space availability. And above that, you also have to put in the human touch. I mean, if one of your colleagues had to come in every morning and teach the first lesson, trust me, you're not the most popular person in school then. But having said that, the guidance counseling curriculum tells us what kind of subject combinations work. What are the kind of subject combinations we should be looking at? In fact, for us, a lot of flexibility has come into our curriculum based upon the input we got from the guidance counseling department. Keeping that in mind, we were able to make a lot of permutations and combinations across the curriculums and timetable accordingly. So again, it was a decisive factor. Safeguarding the interest of stakeholders, parents, colleagues, students, most important, and also society at large. Again, something that our keynote speaker said. She spoke about empowering students with employability and skills. These were two things she spoke about. And I think that's the focus of every guidance counseling curriculum. Again, matching skills with expectation. In fact, and this could be a view we could discuss, should a guidance counseling curriculum be based only on content? Or should it be a curriculum based upon question and answers? Do we want a curriculum which is developed completely on content like other subjects? Or should it simply be based upon questions that come in mind and focusing on development of skills? So I'm going to hand it over to Renee. She's going to tell you what they're doing at their school, and then Preeti will do the same. And then we'll bring together what our content and our curriculums tend to outline.
Great, thank you. So before I get into exactly what our school is doing, I wanted to let you know that if you are brand new to doing a guidance curriculum, there are resources available. You do not have to reinvent the wheel. NCERT has some good information both in their publications as well as the one-year diploma course. So the website's there if you want to learn more about that as an India-specific way of learning more. There's also ISCA, the International School Counselor Association, has an international model for school counseling programs, which is based off of what the Americans are doing, but it's been modified for international contexts. The ISCA model includes a focus on 4 different domains for international school counseling, and those domains are listed here: academic, career, personal, social, and global perspective. I know most of our schools are very keen to be showing how we're cultivating a global perspective in our students, and so there's standards and indicators for that, as well as kind of more traditional academic and career and personal social. So if you need a starting point, there's some really good resources here, and I encourage you to check them out. Our school has adopted the ISCA model for school counseling, and I'll be talking mostly now about the career domain, because I know not all of us are involved in the personal social counseling. But the career domain standards of the ISCA, International School Counseling Association model, has these 3 standards, and you can see they're largely skill-based. The focus isn't on imparting information as much as it is developing student skills. So just the same as we want them to be able to understand a lab protocol in a science class, you want them to be able to develop growth in their own career decision-making, career development skills. So that the next time in life when they approach a career decision point in their careers, maybe they have some more tools to get through that decision without the help of an outside expert. So actually growing those skills in the student is really the focus here. And if you look at the ISCA model for international school counseling, underneath these standards, there's indicators of competencies students should be able to do by the time they graduate from your program. So I do recommend that you check that out and use that kind of as a guidepost for how you can develop this at your school. Another part of the model that we use talks about delivery systems. And this just means how you do what you do, how you deliver it, and how you put it across. I believe in comprehensive guidance, which means meeting the needs of all students in your school, not just the ones who are knocking down your door, right? It's usually the ones who aren't coming who probably need the help the most. And that's always a struggle to try to do the right outreach to get those kids to come in. So this is about doing comprehensive guidance, and a delivery system means that you're not just an open door that attracts the most ambitious students, but that you're actually seeing all students. So components of a delivery system are the curriculum that you're implementing, individual student planning, which are those one-on-one meetings with students, responsive services, which is responsive. It's when you're on the go. And system support, the things that you're doing daily that kind of undergird your whole system. So with that, I'm going to hand it over back to the Dune School and let them talk a little bit more about what they're doing.
What we've done is, career education classes have become part of the timetable. They've been like that for the last 5 years now. We timetable for these classes from year 9 to year 12. So you actually have a CED lesson built into the system. And most of our classes are now for 45 minutes. Initially, they used to be for 35 minutes and realized that 35 minutes was not enough time. It was good enough time for delivering contents across the subject, but it wasn't enough time to reflect in a class, to do a group activity, to have question and answers. And so this was need driven, and we moved on to 45 minutes lessons. We have a very flexible approach with designing the curriculum. For example, we realized that you do not need to timetable for this across all terms. We have 3 academic terms, and we figured out that probably we don't need to bring this in all 3 terms, at least for year 9 and 10. Right now, it's running that way, but we are relooking at that. We are reflecting upon it. We've identified 2 terms which we feel are important and critical to have these lessons built into the timetable. The focus is on learners being reflective. Again, we figured out that you cannot teach this straight out of the book. You cannot teach this straight out of a text. It has to be focused on skill building. Now, the 3 most important skills that employers today look for, forgive me if I'm walking around, it's a bad habit. I sometimes walk to the back of my class. It just comes naturally. It's a teacher's habit. Right. So we figured out that there are 3 skills that employers look for. And one of them is, are you collaborative? Can you think critically? That's the second one. And the third one is, are you adaptable to the environment? These are the 3 most important skills that employers are looking for. And to be honest with you, even universities are looking for them. If you see some of the interview processes that universities now conduct, this is what they actually look for in a candidate, apart from your transcripts. And these are the kind of skills that we start working on. So we do a lot of group activities in our classrooms. And it's a laissez-faire approach. And when I say a laissez-faire approach, it's a bit of a free rein at the earlier years. So we would have a session where students could just come in. We would give them a chart and we would say, okay, draw a roadmap for yourself. Figure yourself out next year. What are you doing in school? Figure yourself out the year after that. Figure yourself out in the year after that. We wouldn't give them something which is 10 years down the line, because that is too long term at that age. But we would give them something which is 3 to 5 years and say, where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? Again, the word career should not really be mistaken for career after universities. The word career education basically means how you are going to manage your aspirations and how you are going to manage your interests with what you do ahead. So for example, in year 9 and 10, it's more about the subjects that you want to study in year 11 and 12. It's about the curriculum that you might want to opt. For example, we have dual curriculum, so whichever curriculum suits you best, which fits your learner profile best. What we always tell our students is, forget the curriculum. Think about the subject. Which subjects excites you? And then see under which curriculum would you want to learn that subject. Skill building approach is something I've already spoken about. The ability to make decisions is at the core of this program. It also means co-opting parents into it. And we do a lot of co-opting. How we deliver this, which is something that Renee spoke about, is the delivery system of this. The classes are not enough to deliver it. There's a lot of back-end support and scaffolding that has to take place. So for example, in addition to the career education classes, what we do is we have sessions with academic heads, that is the heads of departments and subject teachers who come and speak to the students one-on-one on what the subject has in terms of higher classes. So for example, if you're in 9 and 10, we would tell you what the subject would look like in year 11 and 12. What would be the topics you would study? What is the assessment protocol? What are the hours that you expected to give? What is the mechanics in terms of the ISC board? What would it be in terms of the IB board? Also, we have a session where it's a bit of an open house session. And to be honest, we're doing it the first time, where we are going to meet parents of year 10. So we have all our academic departments lined up. You have the coordinators of the various curriculums. They're going to be seated there. And the year 10 parents are going to come in and have a one-on-one to understand what their children are going to study in year 11 and 12. So it's called an open day for year 10 parents. This is something we've done because, again, it was need-driven. It is feedback that we got, and we felt it was good feedback. In addition to that, there are many more things that we do. When I said the ability to make decisions, we are again reflecting on this. I'll show you what we are doing in year 9 and 10. There's some things that we are now taking out, and we are building on other things. One of the things that we are trying to energize on is an internship program built into the curriculum. Now, internships, we have to be very careful with internships because you cannot send students at the age of 14 and 15 for internship. You've got to be a bit careful. What you might want to send is students at the age of 16 and 17. So if you look at the internship program, we would ideally look for students in year 11 and year 12. In other words, grade 11 and grade 12. And we are relying on a lot of our stakeholders to help us out with the internship program. So we have a alumni relation office. And what happens is through the alumni network, we try and get an internship for an interested student. And the internship can be anywhere in the world because we have that option available to us. Again, if a parent says that they can come up with an internship program, nothing like that. You also have to be careful of the internship. You need to have a dialogue with the organization where the student is going for an internship. What kind of internship is it? Is it shadowing? Is it coaching? Is it mentoring? Is it hands-on? And then you have to see what value will it add. So once you've run an internship cycle, a debriefing is very important because that's when you identify that some internships we need to peel off and some internships we need to further reinforce. The best places to actually intern are with entrepreneurs. So if in your school you've got alumni that are entrepreneurs, you need to tap that resource. And I'm telling you, the most exciting internships are coming from that end. Our young alumni, people between the ages of 20 and 30, we are all young. Trust me, we are all young. But between the ages of 20 and 30, because they are doing startups, they're experimenting with new things, they can relate better to your graduating class. And there's a lot of value added that comes back. Yes, sure. Okay. Yeah.
We've got the highest grade until 11. So our first batch passed out in 2019.
Okay.
So we are a pretty young school. But in fact, we just completed the internships for grade 11. So we did this first program. So just wanted to share this experience with you. So in fact, we did a lot of things that you just mentioned. So we had about a total of 86 students.
Wow.
And we sent a letter out to all the parents from nursery to grade 11, and said that we are doing this internship program for grade 11. So who all are interested to help us with these internships in their organization because of safety concerns. Please volunteer out. And then we had sessions, one-on-one sessions with these grade 11 students, understanding what their future would be, when they would actually and what was their interest. And based on that, we place them in those industries, in those specific domains. And we got 24 organizations for these 86 kids, and they all were there. And then we also got them their internship handbook, which every day they had to fill, and based on that they compiled the report. And what our experience was that the best places for them to intern were the smaller organizations, because they got to do a lot of work, especially the startups. Like the FIFA Under 17 World Cup is happening.
I'd like to intern with them.
Yeah, so 6 of our students interned with them, so it was a great experience. Some of students interned with JNU for research, and that was an amazing experience for them also. So it's really nice, and internships really help them, and you see the difference in the students before they do the internship and now after the internship.
Wonderful, wonderful, great. Any other thoughts that you want to share?
Can I ask a question?
Please do.
Like you said, that you every week, once a month, you are holding a 45-minute session with the children, right?
Yeah.
So, like when we are looking at the grade 9 and 10, if we are looking at a class of 40 children, how do you catch their attention beyond 10 minutes? What do you do exactly? Like, when we have been trying to do that, what is happening is we tend to lose them after 10 minutes under this.
Okay, so firstly, let me say our classes are not 40 to 45 students. It's more specific to our situation where our class sizes don't go over 20-25, because our total strength is 562 candidates in a 70-acre campus. But again, what you brought up is a very valid point. It's about holding attention. One of the things we've realized, and this comes from the perspective of being a teacher, has anyone ever taken a video of themselves in class? I have. It is the most scary thing. You know, my mother used to say I talk a lot. My wife always says I talk a lot. My daughter doesn't let me talk. But I've come to a situation where I realize that I do talk a lot. In my classes, if my classes were of 45 minutes, I would end up speaking 30 minutes. And that's not what a class is supposed to be about. It should be 15 minutes teacher talk time, and it should be 25 minutes student talk time. So what you have to do is empower your students, and the best way to empower them, again, you have to put in more hard work for that, but you have to plan activities for them that when they go into the class, they do those activities, and what you have to say is at the end of the activity, this is the learning outcome, and ask them to reflect whether they were able to achieve it or not. Sometimes in our CED classes, what we do is we bring them back the next day and say, how did the previous class go? Do you want it done differently? So taking constant feedback is something that we need to do in all our lessons. Yes, sir.
One of the best is I tell my children, next year I'm going to take this topic. The best question asked gets an A point. So they are prepared and they are asking you questions. They become the teacher and you become a student. And a punch of humor into it. Don't hold the book, speak ex-tempo, 45 minutes.
Wonderful. You know, there's a phrase for it. We call it QFL, questioning for learning. Questioning only for learning and nothing else. Right, so what we have is the topics that we do in year 9. Right? If you notice, it's a very broad spread, but this runs through the year. Some things have not worked for us well, and I'll be very honest with them about them. This hasn't worked too well for us of recent. Because we are based in Dehradun, which is a small hill town, it's a capital. You have a lot of administrative bureaucracy over there, which is fine. You have a lot of government offices, but we don't really have many corporate hubs there. So it hasn't worked out well for us. We've run it for 2-3 years, and we figured out that we need to start redoing this in a different way. So this is something that we are probably going to peel off. I mean, we have alumni within the city also that provide us with a lot of support. But it shouldn't be take a DOSCO to work day. Probably we should take a DOSCO to work week and actually travel down to different parts of the country and see what we can achieve with it. So this is something we are re-looking at. Yes.
You said that you had about 25 class.
25.
25. And saying for the entire school is about 500 children. Now if we have 540 children in 12,
Yeah.
maybe even if we introduce Naviance, so how does it work with such large numbers? Because Naviance has come to us today very keen. But will that be possible, I mean, to get to work with each child within a 500 kilometer population?
Okay, I'll tell you something about Naviance also. Is we are also new to Naviance in many ways. Right now, we are using Naviance only for submitting documents to colleges at year 11 and 12. There is a little bit of exploration in Naviance that we are now introducing in year 9 and 10. I have just spoken to the Naviance reps. We believe it has an aptitude test in it, but they don't call it aptitude test. They call it do it yourself. So the do it yourself kit is you sit in front of a computer in a structured lesson time and you just do it yourself. It generates its own reports. It generates its own output. I think the key to dealing with large numbers is to find resources that can engage the student at point zero and make them work themselves. So what you would probably need to do, and again, it is a very relevant question, is how do you deal with this when your numbers are very large? Yes, and maybe my colleagues here can share a lot of experience that they have with Naviance. In fact, they're more experienced when it comes to Naviance than I am, right? Sure. So this is what year 10 is. Now year 10 aptitude test is where we are planning to shift to Naviance. We used to use a third-party agency that was coming in. To be honest with you, as teachers, as guidance counselors, most aptitude tests have a validity of about 35%. I'm not even putting it at 40. It changes. And many students turn around and say, that can't tell us what we are interested in. We know what we're interested in. And there are many things that they're interested in because we're preparing them for careers for tomorrow which don't even exist today. That's the underlying message. So I think a do-it-yourself approach is the best. And this is what we do for 11th and 12th. Okay, just as we are coming on to the end of this slide, and I'm going to hand it over to my colleagues, in 11th and 12th, we divide our cohorts into 4 parts. So you have those applying to India, those applying abroad. And then we further divide the ISC group separately and the IB group separately because they have to be guided through the process in a different way. In fact, their transcripts look different. Keeping that in mind, we have 4 sections that we divide them into. And summer schools also is what we talk about. We also talk about timelines. It's important. In a boarding school, it's more important because you manage yourself. Of course, we're all there in loco parenti to manage you, but the onus is on the students. There's some more softwares that you can use. Many schools will be using Manage Back also. From what time? Yeah? Yeah, but it's not really used so much for the counseling process. Use it more for your extended essays and TOK work and your CAS work. But it's a good tool to bring into a sense of accountability and meeting deadlines. Right.
I want to ask, as you said, the aptitude test, and of course the validities are there for such tests. These are developed after, somebody from the research and all, validity and reliability is there. But we need to take the holistic approach. Only one test cannot decide everything. Based on only on aptitude test, it cannot work. And as I said, for interest, so aptitude doesn't have the interest. Interest inventories are different, aptitude test is different, and then you need to take the personality check also. That also can be done with psychometric assessment. And then what is the belief system of the child, what are the value system of the child. So many things involved, and one has to have this holistic approach.
So that is why the school counselors help, because they.
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly, that we need to be looking at lots of different indicators that are pointing in the same direction, and we're looking for that convergence, that maybe an assessment, a teacher report, the parents, this child, that everyone's kind of saying the same thing and moving in a similar direction.
Working at a few of the progressive schools, realize that it's a process. It's a process which keeps on learning. And yes, I agree completely that we do need certain kind of, what can come easily to a child. That is something we really need to know. Added to that, yes, reports. Added to that, the teachers' feedback who are working with them throughout. It is a process, it's something which is building up, and we are trying to figure that out. So yes, I do agree that it plays I won't undermine it, of course, but yes, we need added resources.
Moving on to what we do in Woodstock and career development. We're a KG through 12 boarding school. We have an advisory system where students see their advisors in the morning for 20 minutes and have homeroom meetings. And we have introduced a PSHE, a personal social health education curriculum. Some of the counselors are involved in the PSHE program, but it is not a guidance counselor taught program. So we use units in that course at certain key times of the year for our year 9s and 10s. And then we do counselor taught courses in year 11 and 12 to deliver our guidance program. It hasn't always been this way. We haven't always had the PSHE program in 9 and 10 or the counselor taught classes in 11th and 12th. Before that, we made heavy use of our advisor and homeroom times, which I highly recommend if you have a function like that in your schools, which you can plug into, which is already existing, where you are welcome, where the teachers are looking for topics and things to cover. You can introduce a guidance curriculum there and use that to build a case in your school for having more time timetabled with your students just for guidance curriculum. I've broken down here what we do in each of these areas under guidance curriculum. It is delivered through homerooms and counselor developed units, but not necessarily counselor taught units. So we've tried to replicate ourselves so that we're more available for walk-ins and for appointments. And so we're teaching some in the classroom, but we're also empowering our teachers to be able to deliver guidance lessons. Individual student planning. We have voluntary student meetings in year 9 and 10. Pretty much the whole school comes in when it's time to choose their subjects for 11th and 12th anyways. And then in 11 and 12, we have compulsory meetings with our students. So they have to meet with us twice in year 11 and twice in year 12 before December. So that's every single student. That keeps us very busy. But then we know what's going on in that student's life. We know how they've changed over the course of that 1 year period from middle of 11th to middle of 12th, and we're able to speak knowledgeably to their parents about them as well. Responsive services is all the walk-in time, and we've had to learn to be strategic with that because sometimes we have to close our doors and say that, we need to get our recommendation letter writing done. So these 2 hours were not available. There's important planning we need to do as a department to better serve you, and that means that our office hours are only this time of the day on another day. Those are hard decisions to make, but if you're going to be reaching the needs of all of your students, then having an approach where you're actually creating guidance curriculum and delivering it, you need to find time for that. And so sometimes that means closing the door. So I would say it's a balance between having walk-in hours and having the time you need to do to support your lessons. Sure. So the first time students come in year 11, it's more of a getting to know them. What are their hopes and dreams? What are their interests? What are their perceptions of what their family wants for them or what their family's communicated in terms of expectations? Trying to get a handle on that and just getting to know the student and their background. And then by year 12, at that point, they've gone through the guidance curriculum in our taught lessons. So a lot of groundwork has been laid in terms of how to do research for universities, how different regions of the world work in terms of entry requirements and qualifications. They've learned to do a lot of that research on their own. So by their year 12 conversations, it's the student driving that meeting, us asking them, what do you need from me? How can I support you? Because at that point, we're expecting them to be able to tell us where they're wanting to study, how they're planning to get there. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, but we really do push on the student being the driver of their application process for universities. So our goal is in year 12, it's them leading the meeting, not us.
How do you connect PSHE with career development?
Yeah, the question is, how does PSHE connect with career development? We actually just work with our PSHE teachers, and we volunteer to develop a unit for them that's just on career, and we ask them where in the year it can fit into their curriculum. We provide the lesson plans, we provide the training, we're even happy to come in and co-teach. But that way we make sure that the career development curriculum that we want reaching the students is getting them there at 9 and 10, because more of our time is naturally going to be with our 11 and 12s. I'm curious just to see in the room, how do you fit in career development and career work into your timetable? Raise your hands if it's something that has to be completely outside of the school day right now. Is there anyone in that position? Okay. Who does have it kind of built in as a class? Anyone? Wonderful. I'm really excited to see that. That's great. How many of you are trying to use like homerooms, advisors, times like that? Great. Do we have any other models in the room that are willing to speak up about how you're doing it?
We might be able to call this a career development or a career guidance curriculum. But we call it more like a life skill education program. So for us, it's from it's throughout from grade 1 onwards with circle time and other things. But by the time they come to 8th standard, it becomes like a life skill education program, which will have perhaps a circle time or a conversation which may take 1 to 2 hours in a week, because sometimes we feel 45 minutes may not be just enough for children, a group size of 30 kids. So keeping that in mind, the career planning also goes along with the life skills, because there are 8 to 9 core skills you're looking at. Making your own decisions is one of your skills, self-awareness is another one, collaborative thinking.
That's great. So a life skills curriculum is another perfect place where your career development curriculum can slide in and help meet some of those standards you're trying to deliver, or can at least complement and work together, I think, really naturally. Mm-hmm. That's great.
So what we do is, since we offer ICC curriculum till grade 8, and then after that we have the option children moving into either ICC or IGCSE. And then they have again ISC or they do IBD. So for that, once these children are in grade 8, then children are advised and there is, like he said, they're going to do it for the first time, we can do it past 10 in class 8 and then class 10 is coming. And then we check the HODs are there, then they speak to children and the parents what each subject entails and what the distribution of marks and what the...
That's great. It's really interesting to hear how this is happening, because I think this is something that is on the newer side in Indian schools, right? And just seeing how other people are doing this. How are we making it work? Like for us, we've gone from fitting it in at homeroom and doing an assignment with an English teacher in grade 10 and trying to work it in wherever we could, to advocating for having a class a week, 45 minutes a time, just for part of the year. We do just part of the year with grade 10s, part of the year with grade 11s, and part of the year with grade 12s, so that we're moving around between the grades, but the content's getting out there. We'll take one more before I think we need to move on. Yeah.
We have quite a unique model because we start working with them and also primarily we are 9 onwards. We have 3 very unique programs that we sort of have towards this aim of getting students into their right fit universities, building up on their resumes. So we have work experience. So they have a 1-week work experience placement program with different across corporates and different sectors. We have community service programs, and we also have a career day where we will often invite alumni or from across the board, people to come and speak with students about different career options, pathways, how to get to actually.
Yeah, I think a career day is a wonderful opportunity that if you're just starting out, to kind of showcase what you can offer to your school from the Career and Counseling Office. So just at a quick glance, these are the units in broad terms, but you're welcome to contact me and I'm happy to share more details with you in grade 9 and 10. The focus goes from exploring the world of work and beginning to make connections between your work you're doing today in chemistry class and how that connects to a future goal. In grade 10, we follow these 3 questions of who am I, what do I want to do, and how will I get there? So starting to really link goal setting into this with students. And then in years 11 and 12, this is at the point that we have counselor taught classes. In 11th, we're really trying to teach career decision making and research skills. So we're not trying to give them the answers, we're trying to teach them how to do research and use the tools effectively. How to plan for life, for college, all of those things. And then in year 12, you can see that we do observe an application limit, which I know can be controversial. I'm happy to talk with you about that if you'd like to later. And then half of our 12th curriculum is on preparing for transition, which is really life skills. We ask the students at the beginning, what do you need? What have we not taught you how to do to be successful when you leave here? And it's usually things like balance a budget, do my taxes, cook for myself, things like that. So that's what half of the course is about in year 12, is making sure that they have the skills that they need to land on their feet and have a running start when they join university. And in each year, there are some synthesis activities that we do that we force them to basically take things to the next level of understanding themselves. They have to reflect on careers in year 9. In year 10, they have to write an essay about their own career narrative and where they're trying to go in their journey. In year 11, the end of our 11th grade course is students having to give a presentation to their counselor and parents about what their plan is, what they're going to study, where, what their budget is, the research they've already done, how their profile compares, all of it. So by the end of year 11, we're putting them firmly in the driver's seat for going into year 12. We have students come and meet with us and do 10-minute slots in our offices. And then we send it on to their parents. And that starts a whole conversation then with the parent before the students go home for their summer holiday. We do use Naviance. We don't let it take the place of individual counseling, but we'll use a lot of the tools within it to get students doing a lot of the activities, the self-reflection, awareness, the journaling function we'll use in class to have them write notes and to things we're asking them to consider, so that all of that is documented and ready for us to use when we have our one-on-one meetings with them. These are just a few of the things that we've learned. I would say involving students in system support has been one of the smarter ones we've learned. Students are very happy to be interns in the college counseling office and get access to visiting universities, so please use them. That takes a lot of your time to help host those visits, so you might as well use your students and put the best face of your school forward. Use the guest speakers, so that way it's not you talking all the time. Ask the visiting universities that are coming in to cover financial aid for their region, or to cover the entry requirements for certain professions. So that way, students are hearing from different people and you're maximizing the value the guests can bring. I think that's it for us, and now over to Preeti.
Hi everyone. So I work with UWC Mahindra College, and we are in Pune, but really in the rural part of Pune. We don't really have any towns nearby, so our nearest place is about a 20-minute village. That's 20 minutes away from our school. But we are a 2-year IB residential school, and we have a unique system in how our students are brought to campus. We actually have something called national committees that are placed in different countries around the world, and students come through those national committees, and we have about 17 UWCs around the world, so students actually choose their top 3 that they would like to join, and they do not know which country they're going to be placed in, basically. So we have students from around the world that are at the UWC in Mahindra, and that leads for a really interesting guidance approach, because we're looking at different nationalities, we're looking at different financial backgrounds of students. A lot of our students are actually on scholarships. And I think one thing that makes the UWC unique is that we have someone called Shelby Davis, who has a really large endowment that he gave to all the UWCs. So students can actually come and study on scholarships at the different UWCs around the world. And on top of that, he's also given money so that students can go to partner institutions in the US. So students heavily look at US institutions that are part of this Davis scholarship model just because of the scholarship that's available to them. So we actually start our guidance curriculum in the first year spring semester. So when students first come in, we really don't meet with them at all about college ideas or decisions. We meet with them in the second semester just because the IB curriculum is really rigorous, on top of which UWC Mahindra also offers something called a project-based diploma. And we also have a very strong core with the idea of peace and sustainability, so students are expected to actually pick a stream after school to kind of build a project within that stream area. So it could be education, peace, sustainability, environment, and then go into the nearby villages and work on a project throughout the time that they're at the UWC. So that actually spearheads a lot of their decisions about what the next steps are going to be after UWC. So even though we do the traditional Naviance and Common App and UCAS and all of those kinds of prep with our students, we actually give equal consideration to gap year ideas as well as college opportunities right after the UWCs. Again, it's because we take into account the fact that we have the project-based diploma, on top of which we have a NGO on our campus as well that works heavily with students. So again, that kind of spearheads what they're looking at doing. Deciding on the right fit of college is definitely a big thing for us, but again, it's based on the nationalities of the students and which countries they can go to, but then we're also dealing with the Davis scholarships in the US, so that's something that we keep in mind. We have 94 Davis universities in the US, so that's where students heavily apply to, and we have students from 152 nations, so it's a big spread. We do rely heavily on college visits on campus just because of our location. It's hard to take students off of campus. Students can apply for up to 9 schools in the US and Europe, and then UCAS schools are counted separately as well. So that's something to keep in mind. Yeah.
This is just a sample activity that we do in class. So what we actually do in year 9 is we give them an activity sheet. It's a worksheet. It's designed to help you record your answers on the career interest survey. And the career interest survey is conducted in the form of a Google Doc. So we send it out to them. Students have an email ID, a school ID, which is on Gmail platform. We have institutional clients for Google, and they fill it up and they submit it back. And then we share that and say, okay, based upon that prompt, how are you going to answer these questions? So, I mean, activities that best describe what I like to do. This is where we kind of make it very personal. It's customized. And what you fill up in this sheet is just between you and the teacher in class. You don't really have to show it to anyone else. This is not done online. This is done on paper. Again, personal qualities that describe you. There are many ways of doing this. You could actually give an MCQ. You could have 4 or 5 choices and let people pick up from there. Or you could leave it open-ended. We've done both. The one that worked out better was open-ended. I do not think MCQs would be the right way forward, but if it works for a school, it works. It depends on your class also. It could be. It could be, yes. Again, school subjects that I like, interesting. This is where a lot of inputs come in from. Occupational areas or clusters that seem to be a good fit. Colleges and universities that have training for these occupational areas or career clusters. So again, there would be a list given. You would have a list given that says, okay, if you're looking for maybe engineering colleges in India, this is what you're looking at. If you're looking for journalism colleges across the globe, this is what you're looking at. So there is a little bit of interest inventory that is created. It's not actually an interest inventory. This is more or less, it's an information booklet. So this hand booklet is also given to students. We create it within the department and we share it with them before they go into classes. Again, look at this again, and is that how you saw yourself? Very often, students say yes, but you also see things that surprise them. And you also see things that excites them. Again, this is an activity that we do in class 9, but you can further evolve upon this when you move into class 10, class 11, and class 12. And just coming back to what you were sharing with us, I think the best judge of interest, aspirations, and aptitude is the student herself or himself. They are the best judge of that. And whatever we do in our classes, we have to empower them to discover that. That should be the thrust. We could use any software, we could use any module, we could use any template, you could use any test, but finally, you have to empower the student with the capacity to make that decision and accept that this is where my strength lies. You have to bring the parents on board. Parents are a very important part of this process. In boarding schools, parents are not there all the time. So those of us who watch over the children are in loco parenti. So you have the housemasters, you have the house staff, you have the boarding staff, as we refer to them in some schools. But in day schools, there is a lot of communication. In fact, the communication is almost on a daily basis. It's the same in boarding schools. It's more on email, not face to face. But in day schools, you actually can meet face to face and have a lot of those communications. So bringing them on board, I think, is a very important part. And as they move up the classes, the conversations become more detailed and more individualized. Right. That's yours.
All right, so we have 2 more activities, but we're running out of time. So we will actually send it to you after the conference or after the session. It'll be available soon. So we'll send it to you. But we'd like to open it up for questions if anybody has questions. Oh, lots of questions. Great. Yeah.
Teachers all
You can repeat the question.
All right. Yeah.
Okay. It depends on what stage decisions have to be made. So, for example, in our school, we've now introduced the CIE curriculum. So, subject choices had to be made in year 9. So, we started involving the parents from year 8. Prior to this, we used to involve the parents in discussions in year 10 because they had to choose between curriculums and subjects at year 11 and 12. So, it depends when decision making has to take place. So, if you're doing a middle year program, if you're doing an MYP, you probably would need to start having those conversations maybe even earlier. That's how it is. Okay. Yeah. So, I'll tell you some interesting conversations. Quote unquote, I'm a doctor. Other parent a doctor. Child has to be a doctor. And the kid is looking at you and saying, I want to be an archaeologist. I don't want to do medicine. Happens. It is very common, it is very natural, but I think what we need to inform the parents that the world is changing. We are spoiled for choices today. Many people who are parents today went through school when there were not so many choices, there were not so many options. So they have to be told that now that these options exist, we should exercise them. And also there's one more thing very important that we need to share with our parents. It's okay if your child is undecided. It's okay if your child is confused. I would rather have a child who's confused and undecided than someone who says, I know what I'm going to do right from year 6 or year 7, because then that child is probably going to burn out at a later stage because they have not thought out of the box. They have not made an informed decision. Yes, the conversations are tricky. It's part of our job. We have to encourage them. We have to convince them. Finally, you have to tell the parents that what is the most important thing is the happiness of your child. Don't take that away from them. That's what I say when they leave the office. I say the happiness of your child lies in your hands. Don't forget that. Strongly advised. Yes, that's a good suggestion. We should. But the question is, you need to devote time for that. Then you have to find that time institutionally. Sorry.
And a quick thing that we do at UWC, we actually meet the parents that do come to campus, and our principal actually very strongly lets them know that it's a very rigorous program and that it's very student-led, and that also includes college decisions. And so we will welcome parents' conversations, but the students make the ultimate decision, and that's why they're at the UWC. So.
Something here. Our children who intend to come to UWC, and it's always that the parents come to us and say, well, it's the child's choice and he wants to try and he wants to learn. So the good thing is the parents who choose to come to you are also those who know that the children know their mind and they have given them freedom. So that works.
Just a tip for those of you who are Naviance users, you can set up your parent access so that the parents can't move the colleges in and out of the list, only the student can. I find that very helpful.
Your restriction on age, university application, we have exactly the same. We say that our magic is age. Yes, I'm just trying to see what the commonalities are, but what's actually led to that decision?
So just speaking for Woodstock, prior to my joining, we had, I think in the first year that I joined, there were some students that applied to 23 or 24 schools. And beyond the burden that puts on the counseling office for that one student that's not getting the same effort for the rest of the student body, I think a lot of that was coming out of fear and panic. Students hadn't done their research. They didn't know what was a good fit for them. They just looked at a list of names and started filling out applications. That's not a great way to do a college search. So we did a lot of work first building up the guidance curriculum so that students knew how to compare themselves, knew how to articulate what a good fit university was. We're basically writing their supplement essays before they'd even applied, right? They'd figured all that out, they'd done the work, and we found that merely by having a limit, our students were forced to do a new level of research that they'd never had to do before. And as a result, we actually saw our admission rates go up. They were getting admitted more to the colleges they wanted to get into because they'd taken the time to figure out why that college was a good fit, and then that was coming through loud and clear on the applications themselves. Yeah, so for holistic review, it actually improved our admission rate. So after that, I didn't have to convince our board or anybody anymore once they saw those numbers going up. So I ask you to try it out on a trial basis and wait and see if that happens for you as well. But you have to have the kind of back-end support so that you're teaching your students how to do that research first before you can see that kind of an outcome. Yeah.
Community service and how do you guide your students and how does it factor into calendar?
I know for us, community service is not compulsory, but the majority of our students do it because it's a large part of the ethos of our school. And we create time in the day and on the weekend and have 20 different opportunities, and they're allowed to create their own as well. So for us, it's something that happens kind of organically, and we don't have to require it. I know it's a required component at UWC. I'd like to hear at Dune how you do it.
It is a mandated component for us. So we have community service slots in the course of a day. We work with nearby underprivileged schools, and we go into a slum area. We also do a lot of community service in-house. For example, we have a place where our students go and teach. And the people they are teaching there are basically the children of the support staff in the school. For example, the ground malis and all. So we provide that. It is mandated in our school ethos that you have to do community service right from the beginning, from year 7, because we are a secondary school, so we are from year 7 to year 12. Yeah.
Context of a day in a boarding school also becomes
Yes.
different.
Yeah, it does. It does. I think for all of us, our schools are interested in ways to keep our students occupied, and community service is a very sensible way when you're in boarding. So I think that's why we have pretty robust community service programs.
In our daily schedule, we actually have a factored time 4 times a week which says social service. And if you have to travel, the travel time is also taken into account. So we actually factored in our daily schedule. But like I said, in a boarding school, you have that flexibility to do
That's I just one more question.
Yeah, questions.
Two questions, one for Renee. You talked about bringing faculty to help you with aspects of the counseling program. So if you could touch a little bit about what aspects do you have that help you with? And then second question is between the three of you, both anyone here. How do you differentiate the counseling program for A-level students vis-a-vis IBDP students?
On the first question about how we involve faculty, merely by the fact that we're kind of co-teaching those career units, they're sort of getting an open window into what it is we do, and they start to understand it. And then at some point we phase ourselves out so that they're teaching that unit and we're not having to come in and co-teach it. They feel confident to do it then. The other thing we do is we involve our teachers in helping actively in their classrooms talk about careers, not just on a certain day or on a certain week, but regularly to be bringing up to their students, what can you do with biology besides become a doctor? Show clips or highlight careers, and we'll help you find those, we'll help you do that. So just trying to kind of empower our teachers to also be on working on behalf of the career development in the school. I found that that's helpful, and it kind of opens up the relationship between the counselor and the teachers if they feel like you're supporting what they're doing in the classroom.
Just to answer your second question, I think that's the last part we have the session. What we do is, we don't offer the A-levels, we offer the ISC, and we have the IB. So I think the first thing that we tell them is how the grading system is different. We need the students to understand that, and what kind of implication that's going to have on your transcripts. Plus, also, what is the role of predicted grades? So for the IB students, the way grades are predicted within the school is different. The way it's predicted for the IC students is different. And by the way, we are doing a lot of reflection on how to predict. We realize that you cannot do this as a law of averages. So there is a system we're putting in place. We also have a software that helps us determine trends. The infographics are amazing, and we're learning as we go along. But it's important that the students get to know what this is about. Secondly, the timelines. See, the ISC examinations happen at a different timeline, the IBDP examinations happen at a different timeline, and the choice of subjects. In the IB, you choose across 6 groups. You can choose within 5 groups. But in the ISC, what happens is a more structured approach. It's more stream-wise, so we allow a lot of liberal arts combinations. But based upon your choices, what are the options available after that? So diversity versus specialized subject selection, what kind of options are available for you in higher education? So those are some of the things that we advise. Yeah, just one thing. We will stay back because we know that there's a tea break. We are here, the 3 of us. Our email IDs are there in case you need to get in touch with us. Please feel free.
And you're welcome to email us for a copy of the presentation. We're happy to send that out to you.